dissected a trailer scene by scene and was like looking for something to indicate him. And I remember there's a part in that movie where like Doctor Doom goes to the Arctic to meet the Silver Surfer or something, and he's got like a hood and a cloak on, so you can't tell it's Doctor Doom. Like, not like the normal Doctor Doom hood and cloak. This is like a full coverall jacket. And I remember seeing that shot in the trailer, and they just show him from behind talking to the Silver Surfer, and I was like, I bet that's the Watcher. For whatever reason, I thought that was going to be the Watcher talking to the Silver Surfer. And, like, that was my indication that this was the Galactus story. And in a way, it was gonna be, but then they didn't actually do Galactus. He was just a big storm cloud because they wanted to do a Silver Surfer spin-off movie and save Galactus for that.
And I think that movie did the same thing that Phase 2 of Marvel did wrong, where after they took the step into the silly and people accepted it, that they took a step back.
Yeah, and there were definitely parts of Rise of the Silver Surfer that tried to take themselves too seriously, and then there were other parts that were even sillier, and it made them, like,
we had weird tonal
annoying.
Issues.
Yeah, like, I remember there's this scene where Mr. Fantastic is dancing at, like, his bachelor party, and it's, like, I was, like, 13, and I was like, this is cringeworthy.
Yeah!
I was somehow able to feel shame as a 13-year-old over that scene.
I only vaguely remember it, that whole movie in general.
Yeah.
I did go see it in the theaters with my friends. Yep. I do remember that. I remember the experience of seeing the movie.
Yeah.
I don't really remember the movie that much.
Yeah, that's about me too. I remember going to see it because my friend was in Portugal when it came out. And he saw it in Portugal, like in English with Portuguese subtitles or something. Yeah. And he came back, and he was in Portugal for like a couple months. And he came back and he was like, oh my God, I saw Fantastic Four. And I was like, is it good? And he was like, not really. And I was like, will you go see it again? And like back then, it was one superhero movie every like 4 years. And so fucking, of course, I'll go see it again. And so we went to go see it. And I remember just being very, very disappointed. Just mostly because Galactus wasn't there. Yeah. And that was enough to ruin an entire movie for me.
That's fair. I mean, to be fair, that it kind of does ruin the whole movie because it kind of had a really anticlimactic
climax.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because Andy Serkis is a fantastic Silver Surfer.
That was Andy Serkis?
Yeah, that was Andy Serkis. Yeah. He does a really, really good job in that movie.
By the way, listeners, if you think we're going to do any research beforehand...
No, we're just going to straight up start bullshitting.
Feel free to yell at us about it.
We said we had opinions, not facts. It's my opinion that Andy Serkis was the Silver Surfer in that movie.
Well, it's my opinion.
You know what?
He wasn't.
It might have been Doug Jones now that I think about it. It was either Andy Serkis... Look it up. Because it was either Andy Serkis or Doug Jones. Silver. And if it was Doug Jones, I'm going to feel bad because I really like him.
Yeah, he deserves better.
Yeah.
Silver... 2007.
Holy shit!
Older than I thought it.
Yeah,
newer than I thought it was.
Yeah, I thought it was. I was earlier middle school when that came out.
Oh, by the way,
yes.
Before we move too far past this, and I forget to talk about it. What?
Wait, what was it?
It says Lawrence Fishburne.
He was in the movie, but he was not the Silver Surfer.
He's credited as the Silver Surfer. But Doug Jones is the Silver Surfer.
Oh, okay.
Lawrence Fishburne was the voice, probably.
Oh, yep, that's probably it. So it was Doug Jones. I'm sorry, Doug Jones. Yep. You were really good in literally every movie you've ever been in, including that one.
It's true. I will say we often forget that Chris Evans was the Human Torch in that.
Oh, I remember.
I always remember, but people forget that.
That was his original Marvel movie was the Fantastic Fours 1 and 2, and he was obnoxious. But I mean, to be fair, he was playing Johnny Storm, who's an obnoxious character.
But also, too, remember that Chris Evans' career began as him being a teen idol in teen movies.
Really?
Yeah, that's I have seen lots of movies with Chris Evans in it, and they were all like teen romance movies, including I believe it's the one I'm thinking of is not another teen movie where he was in that, and like those are the movies he was in before. That's what he was famous for. Was when he was young, was being in those movies, and So this was kind of like a breakaway, but he was still. That's why they cast him, because he's the playboy, pretty boy kind of thing that Johnny Storm is kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
So that's why they cast him, and he just kind of aged out of that, and he doesn't do that anymore. And I'm really glad, because he is a talented actor, and he doesn't deserve that.
It's true. I kind of like rediscovered him when he started doing Captain America, and then like looking back, I was like, holy shit, he was Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four movies, and those were like the only things I was aware of him in.
With that buzz cut.
Oh my god, he did. Like, if you ever want to not be turned on by Chris Evans,
like, watch that movie.
Watch those movies.
But, like, because like Johnny Storm had longer. He didn't.
Yeah,
have
he was supposed to be a pretty boy. He wasn't like a tough guy.
Yeah, they again, that was just what was considered the playboy.
He was pretty boy at the time. Yeah,
and like that cut was popular at the time. It just. That cut comes and goes, and it's annoying. And I hate it.
So now that we've gone over the history of the superhero movie a little bit and how big of a fucking deal it used to be.
So now with 2007 being the mark with the end of the rise of Silver Surfer, we hit the real renaissance of superhero films.
2008, we got in one summer Iron Man and The Dark Knight.
Yes.
And those were the ones that really, like, that was the biggest fucking deal that summer.
It shattered, I would say it shattered all, not shattered, it very much cemented the paths that those two companies would take. Forever.
Yes. That was the first time, because, like, the thing was that the superhero movies came out and everyone went to go see them. Like, all the kids I knew went to go see Spider-Man and everything, but like you didn't go to school and say like, oh, Spider-Man was so cool. Like, you didn't do it.
It still was uncool to like
and so like
superheroes.
Iron Man, specifically Iron Man, I can remember being the first one where it was really cool, where like I was in high school now, and I remember being somewhere with my friends, like the kids in my class, and saying something about Iron Man, like I hadn't seen Iron Man yet, and they were like, what are you doing? You have to see Iron Man. Like, all of them had seen it, and all of them were like pushing, like, you have to see Iron Man. And it was just really cool. And then The Dark Knight was just insane. I had seen Batman Begins before, because you had a different experience with The Dark Knight than
I have a completely
than almost literally every other human being on Earth.
It's true. And this is the Dark Knight series is also kind of a strange footnote in this context, because it doesn't quite fit with the rest of the trends, because like the Batman Begins was definitely in the vein of the dark, gritty, realistic film era, and then like the Dark Knight happened, and they just did it really well for
2008.
And I have opinions of that film.
Yes,
as well.
we have opinions.
I, however, did not see either film in the theater.
You didn't see Iron Man in the theater?
No, I'm sorry. I meant Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, either in this film trilogy.
Yes.
I did not see those first two in theaters. I saw Batman Begins on HBO or something, like when it hit HBO, and I liked that film, but I did not have any interest in continuing with it.
Yeah.
So I did not watch The Dark Knight when literally every other human being on the planet had seen The Dark Knight. And then, like, when enough people had seen it, and I was like, I guess I should go watch it. It was out of theaters.
Yeah, we watched it together for the first time when we were in college in, like, 2011, 2012, and I remember your reaction being very, like, oh, all right. Like, that was a movie. But like, you have to put yourself in that place where it was 2008. Iron Man had just hit.
Yes.
And Iron Man was
I saw in the theater.
Yeah, that was wild. And Iron Man at the time, like, looking back, Iron Man isn't impressive, but when it happened, it was huge because it was the full, like, not taking itself super seriously, but felt very justified in its budget, and like it was the blockbuster that shattered everyone's like preconceived notions about superhero movies.
It's because they, at the time, my personal opinion on why it was so big was because Iron Man in general isn't like the most. He has some wild stuff, but he's definitely the most like
he's a little
grounded, down to earth superhero with his whole universe. So for fans of Iron Man, it worked really well because that was it. That was how Iron Man was. but it was also not super crazy, so it was consumable by a mass audience.
Right.
And so and then they really like the asshole with that angular goatee was super the big thing.
Oh yeah,
then.
Which is
huge.
One of the reasons that the Iron Man and Iron Man 2 have aged like milk is that 2008 was a very different time for the American culture, and like asshole playboy billionaire weapons designer was like someone we were willing to accept as a hero and like hashtag goals.
Yeah.
Who didn't want to be Tony Stark in 2008?
Exactly.
Nowadays, like
it's way different.
Way different.
But that was exactly the pinnacle, and like men wanted him, women wanted to be him.
It's so true,
and it was fantastic.
Absolutely.
And I really, really, really liked that movie.
Yeah.
And it was really good. And like I said, it was enjoyable. It was consumable. And the big thing I think they did was having his character, and then to also keep him grounded, they played all of those classic rock songs.
Yep.
And I think that soundtrack has a lot more to do with its success than a lot of people let on or realize. And also that was one of the biggest losses of his character as time went on, and they couldn't focus on him anymore.
Yeah.
Was that he didn't have that.
Yeah. So brief side note with that. One thing I miss about the old school superhero movies is that they always had an accompanying really lame song. Spider-Man had but like it was with superhero movies, it was like I had the soundtrack to Spider-Man, the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, not the score, the soundtrack.
Yeah, that was a big deal because those were very different back then.
Yep. You couldn't. You when you bought the soundtrack, you weren't getting like the instrumental pieces. You were getting 2 or 3 songs that they actually played in the movie, and then another 5 songs that just kind of vaguely fit the theme of the movie.
You know what? I think that's part of the reason why Spider-Verse was as good as it was, because it did have a soundtrack.
It had a soundtrack and a score. Yes. And so just in general, though, like, I miss there being a big goofy pop song to go with every single superhero movie that had an attached music video that got played on TV where they played unrelated clips of the superhero movie while some man was singing to me.
That's huge at that time frame.
Oh, yeah.
Like, all of my sad rock music that I listened to had that going on.
It's like emo rock songs.
Oh, yeah. That was the big thing. Emo culture at its peak.
But anyway, going back to Iron Man, I think that we can both agree that when you're sitting in the theater and you've just watched Iron Man, and like, I forget what possessed me to stay after the credits. I think I was just aware, either I had read that there was a post-credit scene, or my dad had, or was just aware that sometimes movies put something after the credits. But I remember sitting in that theater and seeing Nick Fury pop up and say, like, I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative, and having two emotions at the exact same time. The first being like, holy shit, like, that's insane. Like, they're gonna do an Avengers movie? Because, like, once again, I hadn't read a ton of Avengers, because what had been passed down to me, hand-me-down, was Fantastic Four comics, and what I was into was Spider-Man. But I knew about the Avengers, and I thought that was, like, the craziest thing ever. And I was so hyped at the idea of an Avengers movie, but I also was 100% sure it was not going to happen.
That was me. I was literally gonna, after you finished, interject with that. Was like that. I also was like, wow, that's crazy that they're thinking of doing the Avengers. It's never gonna happen.
I was like, we're probably never even gonna get like a Thor movie or something. I was like, they're never gonna make that Avengers movie, but it would be cool if they did. Like, that was my emotions. And so, like, you had that wild, zany ride of Iron Man, and then, like, later in the summer, Dark Knight comes out, and that was crazy because 2 superhero movies coming out in the same summer was not a thing yet. Like,
absolutely not.
That was insane that summer. And I had seen Batman Begins when it was new, but I didn't like it because I was dumb and I was in middle school, and I didn't like Batman back then. I thought Batman was boring, and the only reason I wanted to see Batman Begins was because I liked Scarecrow. and Scarecrow wasn't in the movie very much. And so, like Fantastic Four 2, it went into Cameron's "This Isn't Godzilla" garbage pile of things I didn't care about.
Just so the listeners to know, over time you will gain aspects of our lives that will undoubtedly come up, and we'll try to explain them as they go. But since we did absolutely zero introduction about who we are as people before we started talking,
which is for the best, I think.
Uninteresting.
You didn't miss much, everybody.
But Cameron, what, Rupert? We call him
Rupert. It was me before I was 14. Was Rupert, and I was hyper fixated on Godzilla when I was a kid, and I did not care about anything that couldn't be related to Godzilla. And no matter how hard people tried to push other interests on me, if I could not in some way tie it to Godzilla or monster movies, I didn't care. And I rejected it as wholeheartedly as possible. And that's what happened with Batman Begins.
It happened with a lot of important things, as will come up later when we talk about other films and stuff.
As we bring up other things that I eventually ended up loving and became a huge thing for me, I will continuously bring up how they were introduced to me as a child, and I rejected them because they weren't Godzilla.
But, so you rejected the Batman Begins.
I rejected Batman Begins. I wasn't interested. And then the summer when my friend, the same one who was in Portugal, is a huge Batman fan still. And was even more so probably back then. And I remember he was really excited for The Dark Knight. And I was like, all right, whatever. And for whatever reason, I was flipping through the channels one night, a month or so before the movie came out, and they were re-airing episodes of Batman the Animated Series, which I had never watched because there was no monsters in Batman the Animated Series that I knew of, and so I wasn't interested in it. And so I was watching that episode of Batman the Animated Series, and it was an episode that had the Joker in it, and it was the Mark Hamill Joker, best Joker, hands down.
I'm making the delicious chef.
Yes, fantastic Joker. And that was, I can remember the exact moment when I decided I liked Batman was the Joker's on like this trash barge, and he's got this robot clown driving it. And Batman does something, and the head blows off of the robot, and the Joker runs down and grabs it, and he looks up with sorrow in his eyes, and he goes, "You killed Captain Clown!" And that made me laugh so much when I was like 14 that I was like, I like Batman now.
That's it.
That was all it was.
To be fair, that was like one of the best Batman things.
Oh yeah, that is, in my opinion, the best Batman thing. But we'll do another episode where we talk about like the cartoons and stuff. But that was me. So going into The Dark Knight, I had recently gotten interested in Batman by watching the animated series, and then I started watching the episodes that were re-airing every single night. And so when we went to go see, me and my friend went to go see The Dark Knight, when he tells this story, he'll always bring up the fact that I made him show up to the movie like 50 minutes early because I was so certain that we were going to have to fight to get tickets. I live in a town that's probably got about 5 people in it, but for whatever reason, I was certain that this theater was going to sell out of The Dark Knight, and so we got there way too early, and we had to hang out in the theater for like 50 minutes before the movie started, killing time.
A whole ass hour.
A whole hour before the movie started, just trying to kill time for Batman, and then we saw it. And it was wild, and I was full, like, that summer, I was that obnoxious kid who was way too into The Dark Knight, and, like, I had Joker shirts, and, like...
A lot of people had that phase.
Yeah.
And everybody had that phase. I'm personally very proud I can wash my hands.
You didn't have the Why So Serious t-shirt because you didn't see the movie.
Yeah, I didn't, and I was too busy going through my anime renaissance.
That's right. And so I was watching I saw The Dark Knight in theaters 4 times, and until 2 years ago, that was the most times I had ever seen a movie in theater. And I spent years trying to break that record because I didn't want The Dark Knight to hold it forever.
Oh my god.
But yeah.
Just as a side note, with your record, my long record that held for several years, I guess it was only a couple of years.
Yeah.
For the long amount, the movie I'd seen the most in theaters was the first Hobbit movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, the Dark Knight's better than that.
Yes, but it's just because of how big Lord of the Rings was that
Mm-hmm.
everyone else saw it, and then
Mm-hmm.
I had to see it with all these separate group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then it didn't break until I saw The Force Awakens,
Yeah.
which I saw many times.
Yeah.
So that I could reaffirm my opinions on that film.
We'll have a day where we talk about The Force Awakens too. But yeah, so then 2008 happened, and from then on, it was just like cake. It was cake every night. It was every summer.
Daddy's home.
Daddy's home. Cake every night. We're not going to give you context for that. If you know it, congratulations. But I feel like that one stands for itself.
Yeah, we've been talking for 40 minutes, so we gotta keep moving.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah, so then after that, it was just constantly superhero movies, and it was just fantastic. It was paradise.
Oh.
And just over time, slowly it started to wear, for us at least. I know a lot of people are still super into it, but it's wearing.
And that's fine, but the reason we're talking about it is we have the wear.
Yes.
And Marvel fatigue.
And so in an attempt to get ourselves out of the funk a little bit, finally, at 43 minutes in, we're going to talk about what makes a good superhero movie. Here we go. So this isn't necessarily your top 10, just what elements do you look for when you're looking at a superhero movie?
I was thinking about it, and it really does depend on the character.
Yeah.
But overall, what most important thing is the feeling that the feeling of its connection to the source material. So movies that are poor-spirited, like the mean movies, that like are mean towards the characters, things that just completely change them so that it's not the same thing that you're looking at. It doesn't so much matter about the redesign of the character. That doesn't bother me so much as much as long as when I watch it, I feel that this is the character. Yeah. And ultimately, we watch these films because we want to see something greater than what we are already in. This the whole concept of superheroes is to bring this idea of escapism out to us. And when you bring in a movie that doesn't do that, it really, for me personally, just ruins it. Because what's the point of me watching this if it's just gonna take what I look up to, smash into the ground and step on it? And it just goes along with the mean-spirited thing. That's what the phrase I was looking for. Yeah. Mean-spirited thing for that just doesn't work. So it just can't be. That's my